Kadosh Boker Or Masechet Gittin Daf Amud Aleph 11a1. The Gemara says, Hechi Dami Shemo Muvakin. If you guys remember, we spoke about that. We were asking the question, how could it be that you're going to come and you're going to bring a document from the secular court and it's going to be kosher? Obviously, it shouldn't be kosher. The Gemara answered, obviously, we're going like the Shita of Rabbi Lazar, that Edem Mesira Karte. Edem Mesira Karte means the ones which are giving over the get, are the ones which are really cutting off, right, this marriage. It's not the other ones, it's the ones which are giving over the get. So the Gemara asks, fine, but even if you're going to tell me the ones which are giving over the get are cutting off the marriage, there's something which is called Mezuyaf Mitucho. Mezuyaf Mitucho means that if it's going to be forged from within, here it doesn't mean literally forged, because obviously it wasn't forged, it was just signed though with not kosher edim, with the non-Jewish witnesses, but the fact that it was done in such a fashion, that's called Mezuyaf Mitucho. If it's Mezuyah Mitocho, it's going to be Pasul, even according to Rabbi Lazar. The Gemara answered here with what are we dealing with? V'shemot muvakin. Names that are 100% non-Jewish, you know they're not Jewish. So you would never call it Mezuyah Mitocho. You know that nobody would ever use these witnesses for any other reason. And therefore, it's not considered Mezuyah Mitocho. That's the way we finished yesterday's.
I ask you
the
guess, because
yes.
some people keep
100%. No, but even with that, remember, a guy's name is always a Jewish name afterwards. It doesn't exist. Right? You don't write last names on a get, right? When you're a witness, you write your name and your father's name, right? You don't write any other name, right? So therefore, if you're going to write, Abraham or Mesud ben Yaakov, so then that's perfect. But if a person is going to come and start writing down John Doe ben Jan Doe, right? It's a problem. You understand? What do you mean it's a problem? Meaning that we know Shemo Muvakim. These are names that we know that they're non-Jewish. Okay? So says the Gemara, Hechi Dami Shemo Muvakim. What is the case? What are names which are Shemo Muvakim that you already know that we're going to be talking about non-Jewish names? Yeah? So what is the case of Shemo Muvakim? Rav Papa says, for example, Hurmiz, Vavudina, Bar Shivtai, Ubar Kidrei, Bati, Venakim Una. These are all names of Dayanim, of judges, of Goyim. So therefore, any of these names, right, are considered Shemot Muvakim, that they belong to Goyim. Okay? Aval, however, though, Shemot She'en Muvakim, names which are not Muvakim, what is the halacha in a get? Lo, right? It's not going to be kasher, even according to Rabbi Shimon. If so, Adetani Seifa, the fact that we learned in the Seifa, Lo Huskiru, Ela Bizman Shenasu Ediot, that we didn't mention shtarot, that are going to be documents that are going to be signed through goyim, that it's only going to be done when it's going to be done through regular goyim and not judges. Why don't we separate it and learn it, teach it separately? But one of these words that a get that comes from the secular courts and it's going to be signed by the goyim is going to be kosher, only if you have signatures of people that are known. Aval shemot shenu muvakim. But if it's going to be shemot which are not muvakim, lo, you would say no, that it doesn't work, which means that the get is not going to be kosher, even if it comes up in the erkaot, even if it comes up in the secular courts. So says the Gemara, you're right. Hachinami kamar, you're right. It's exactly what we have to say. So the first answer is you're right. It has to be that it's only going to be kosher. You have to add the extra detail that it's only if it's going to be shemot muvakin of dayanei goyim. It has to be shemot muvhak, something that you know this is a non-Jewish judge, right? Not just stam, everyone knows about it, right? But if it's not going to be shemot shenu muvakim, then it's going to be pasul. Second answer, if you want, you can answer. Seifata legite mamon. We use the terminology get. We only thought that get refers to get of nashim. We saw that get also refers to avadim also, right? It's also called shichrur avadim, but it's also called get, right? Get shichrur, right? And now we're talking about gite mamon. What exactly are we referring to exactly? Shtar mamon, ve'achi kamar. This is what it means to say, right? The shtarot which come up into the secular courts, except for gite nashim and shichrur avadim, but lo yizkiru gite mamon de psulim ela bizman shenasu be'ediot. So he comes and he says like this. He says, here we're talking about, right, the chiluk, the difference that's written here between shtarei mamon, right, and these which are the shtarei diotot is also to do with shtarei meched. He says Shtare Matana also, right? So this is all going to be the differences between them. Okay, so here he comes and he says, we're talking about, right, Shtare Matana is like Dine Gittin Nashim, and now what we're talking about is, right, Gittin Mamon, which means that the end of the Mishnah is teaching about Shtare Mechen, which means that we're not talking about even Gittin Nashim, which are going to be signed by Goyim, are going to be kosher. But here the Mishnah is talking about Shtare Mamon, which are coming up, which is going to be kosher, and not Shtare Gittin, right? That's what we're talking about, Gittin Mamon. Okay? So here he comes and he says as follows, right? Tanya, as we learned in a Braita, Amar Rabbi Elazar Bar Yosef, says Rabbi Elazar Bar Yosef, Kach Amar Rabbi Shimon lechachamim b'tzaidan. This is what Rabbi Shimon told the chachamim in Tzaidan. Lo nechlekuu Rabbi Akiva v'chachamim al kol hashtarot ha'olim v'rekot shel ovdei chovim. There's no machloke between Rabbi Akiva and chachamim and all the different documents that come up from the secular courts. She'af al pi shechotomim ovdei chovim ksherim, that even though they're signed by the goyim, it's still going to be kosher. Va'afilu gittin hashim shechui avadim, and even gittin hashim shechui avadim is going to be kosher. Lo nechlekuu. When is the machloke? Bizman shenasu be'ediot, if it was done by regular people. Rabbi Akiva says it's going to be kosher, right? All the different documents. And chachamim say it's going to be pasul, everything except for Gittin Hashim Shichrur Avadim. Rashbag Omer, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel comes and he says, even Gittin Hashim Shichrur Avadim, right, which are going to be kosher, or whether it's going to be according to Rabbi Akiva and according to Chachamim, Keshenim Imkom Sheni Sel Chotmin. That's only going to be kosher if the Ovdei Kochanim do not give reshut for the Israel to sign. So in such a case, that means if the Goyim do not give reshut for the Jews to sign, they don't give the permission for the Jews to sign. So in such a case, the Chachamim did not come and did not disqualify it, because everyone knows that it's going to be Goyim, which are the ones which are signing it, and therefore they're not going to depend upon them. But let's say the non-Jews would accept that the Jews are allowed to sign different documents. So then no, it's not going to be kosher. That means even though the Shemot are Shemot Muvhakim, right, there's still going to be a chashash. If you're going to permit this get with these Shemot Muvhakim, maybe you're going to come and you're going to permit other witnesses which are not Shemot Muvhakim. Meaning at the end of the day, if I'm going to come and permit John Doe, maybe I'm going to permit a Jack, right? Or something else, right? Which is very similar, right? But it's not Shemot Muvhak, meaning because you do have sometimes Jacks which are Jewish, right? But so it's not a Shemot Muvhak. It's not a name which is, everybody knows that it's a non-Jewish name. You understand? So he says, "Mekom she'en chotmin, she'nisel chotmin, nami ligzoratu makom nisel chotmin." One second. What did you just say? You just said that we're going to make a decree that if you're going to have Jews, right, which are not going to come and not going to be chotem, right? So therefore, they come and they actually understand this. So he comes and he says like this. He says, right, in a place, right, where mekom she'en Yisrael chotmin, the Yisrael are not going to come and they're not going to sign. Right? But if it is going to be in a place where Israel are going to sign, right? No. So then the question is, what's going to happen exactly? Yeah, how does this make sense exactly? Okay. So it says over here, okay, that if you're going to tell me that it's only going to be in a place where the Jews don't sign, then it's going to be kosher. But if they sign, it's going to be a problem, right? So then you have another question. Even in places where they don't sign, you should also make a gzirah for a place where they do sign. Meaning like this. It could be that here in this city, right, or in any city, Lavdavka here, they don't let Jews sign. Right? Fine. So, okay, no problem. But then what happens is that all of a sudden, without realizing it, right, the place next door, they do let them sign. So why don't you make a decree that, what are you going to say? No, a place where they don't sign, it's going to be kosher. But 1 second, next door, they do sign. So therefore, why don't you make a decree for the places that they don't sign, to the places that they do sign? You made a difference between places where they sign and they don't sign. If they don't sign, it's going to be kosher. If they sign, meaning if Jews can sign, it's a problem. 1 second, why don't you just say it's always going to be a problem? Because even if here they don't sign, maybe the next door county or the next door country or the next door city, they do sign. And then again, you're going to have a problem, right? Because again, you're going to get a get. And then you're going to start being machshir, and you have any problems. Why don't you just right? 1 second. 1 second. So says the Gemara, Shema b'shema michlif, atra be'atra lo michlif. Between one city and another city, we don't get mixed up. Between a maybe and a maybe, we do. Meaning, if you're going to tell me that maybe one name is going to be getting mixed up with other names or things like that, yeah, that you could, meaning in the same context, you could get mixed up. In the same thing, you could But if it's going to be from one city to another city, I'm not going to say that the rules, whether it's going to be of the US, are the same as Canada or Mexico. Canada and Mexico is right beside each other. They're neighbors. It doesn't work. Even in states, sometimes there's different laws. And I'm not going to say, you know what, we need something universal, because between one state and another state, there's different rules. And therefore, between one city and another city, says the Gemara, we do not get mixed up. There could be rules in one city, so I'm not going to make a gezerah, maybe because this city they do accept it or they don't accept it, the next city they do. It doesn't, we don't do that. Sure, yeah. But the Shema and Shema, right, we do have it. So therefore, right, so Ravina Sava Lachshure Bekrufyata de Darmae. Ravina wanted to be Machshir Shtar, which was done with a group of Armaim, right? Which was kilu that they used to come and they used to make judgments, right? But it wasn't like a fixed beddin, right? It was like they used to come and they used to do like small cases. So Amarle Rafram Arkaotnan. Rafram comes and he told him, no, but it's written Mefurash Erkaot. Erkaot means proper batedinim. Like it has to be proper secular courts. It can't just be like one of these, like these money cases or whatever it is. Okay? Amar Rava. Rava comes and he says, Hai shtara parsa te misre ni'ale be'apeh sa de Yisrael. This shtar parsi that was given over the loveh to the malveh in front of the Edei Yisrael, magbiram bei mi bnei chareh. We're going to give it from bnei chorim, banot menechasim, meshu'abadim. Yeah? Which means at the end of the day, we're going to come from bnei chorim, not menechasim, meshu'abadim. So ask the Gemara, V'halo yade lemikra. Says 1 second, but Edei Mesira do not know how to read Parsit, because again, this is a Persian shtar. You're listening, Persian, yeah. It's a Persian shtar that it was given, right? That it was given, right, in front of the Saadei Yisrael. So therefore, he comes and he says, we're going to give them that they could actually collect only from Nechasim, right, Bnei Chorim, but not Nechasim Meshubadim. Nechasim Bnei Chorim means free properties that don't have a lien, but not properties that have a lien. So ask the Gemara, 1 second, Edei Mesira, they don't know how to read Persian. So since they don't know, how could you come and testify about this document? They don't even know what it's talking about. Imagine right now I'm going to come and I'm going to give you a document. It's written in Chinese. What am I going to tell you? What's written there? Google. It could be written anything. Google Translate. Many times it's incorrect. Right? You have to remember, in a document, all you need is one word change, and it changes the entire document. So you read A and it told you B. You read B and it told you A. Just because of one word. So you cannot come and start playing around with these things. So answers the Gemara, no, they knew it. Right? They know Persian. They knew it, and therefore they're allowed. What? No. Edim. Witnesses. So it says the Gemara, 1 second, but you have to write it in a klaf. And it has to be a ktav that you cannot forge. Right? Which means that they have to come and they turn it and everything. So therefore here, right, these Persians, they write their shtars on a klaf, which is this thing. Maybe he's going to come and he's going to start changing things, erasing, doing all these things. They could come and they could start forging all these documents. So answers the Gemara, bedafitzan. We're talking about you put on the klaf, you put it on meubad. You basically processed it, right, with afatzim, which is basically you processed it with a certain type of that you could see it exactly. That means you basically, if you're going to erase something, you could see all the smudges, right? No matter how good you're going to be. You could tell. So says the Gemara, fine. But do you know that it's like Lavdil Elef Avdalot? When you're writing an English essay, yeah, you have to make sure that the last line in the first paragraph, right, is giving you like a summary of everything that you mentioned before. Right? That means the last line has to be, like an introduction. What is it called?
Conclusion.
The conclusion, right? But basically it's like in the last line there, you have it. So he comes and he says here also, you need like a conclusion, which is basically like a summary, right, of everything which was written. And their documents, they don't choser on this in the Shura Acharona. So answers Gemara, no, they did do it. Right, they did it. They did like a summary at the end. 1 second. If they knew Persian, if, right, they did it on a klaf which cannot be mizayef, it cannot be forged. If right now they did like this, the conclusion, the summary, so why can't you collect even from nechasim meshubadim, even from properties that have a lien? At the end of the day, they did everything properly. What do you want? So says the Gemara, lekala. The reason why is because since the shtar was not signed by Jews, there's no kol. There's no voice. Meaning when two people come and they write on a document, right? People come and say, by the way, you should know, we just signed on a get, we just did this, we just that. And there's a voice, right? The voice starts running. You know how it is, right? The Jews, they, especially certain people, they like to talk. So what happens, right? The word gets out on the street. Here, there's no word that gets out on the street. So since there's no call, that's why people cannot be careful of the lien. And nowadays, they actually pay a lawyer, that the lawyer checks into the lien. Meaning he wants to check, is there any lien onto a property? So for example, I want to buy a property. So they're going to check, is there a lien or no lien, right? Here though, right, in the olden days, they couldn't do that. So therefore what happens is that they had to check. How do they check? Only with voice. So if they don't hear anything going on with this property, the voice, meaning it's talking about it. They start asking people around and nobody knows about it. If I'm going to ask everybody, is that your house? Nowadays, akol katuv batabu. Right, everything is written. In the olden days, it was not. So therefore, I would ask you, no, he's been living here for 200 years, and his grandmother, and his so therefore, that's it. You know what I'm saying? That means everyone was done with voice. Voice means that that's why it wasn't like it's written somewhere. You understand? Fine. So Bamine Reshakish from Yochanan, Reshakish comes and he asks from Yochanan. Yeah, Yudalef Amubet, 11b, to be or not to be. Edim achatumim alaget. Ushmotan kishmot of de kochavim. Mao. What happens right now if you have witnesses that are Jewish witnesses, right? Or we're not sure actually, because they're signed on the get, but the names are like of the kochavim. What's halacha? That means we have a doubt, right? Are they Jews? Or are they goyim? There's the way that they signed it. We don't know. So Amar Lei comes and he tells him, Lo ba liadenu lelukus velus. The only ones that we had are lukus and lus in such a case. And we said that it's going to be kosher. Davka lukus velus, and only lukus and lus. So lo shchicha yisel demaske b'shmatayu. It's not common that the Jews are going to be named like that. Okay, that means basically these are shemo muvakim of goyim, and that's why that means we know that any locus or lus was a goy. Yeah, aval shemahata charine, but names which are other names. That you do have sometimes Jews that have those names. Lo, it doesn't help. Why? Because maybe it's a Jew, maybe it's a goy. We don't know. We don't know what it is. So eighth way, we're going to ask a question. When you have a get that comes from diaspora, and you have witnesses which are signed on them, even though the names are like goyim, it's going to be kosher. Why? In Chutzaretz, the majority of the names are like of the kochavim. Meaning in Israel, right, you have Jewish names, but in Chutzaretz, right, the majority of the names of the goyim. So he says, why? Because the majority of the Jews which are going to be in Chutzaretz, shmoten kishmot of the kochavim. So I answer the Gemara, hatam kedetani there it's different because Rabbi says shmoten kishmot of the kochavim. So that's why it's a different halacha. Meaning that there's no siba to start suspecting that they're going to be goyim. We're going to say really be'emet they're all Jews. But the majority of the Jews, they had non-Jewish names, so therefore there was obviously Jews there. If you want, you can answer another answer, which means our braita, right, was what they had, and therefore he says that they're going to be posheted from the braita. Okay? Fine. Says the Mishnah, Haomer ten get zelishti. A person comes and he tells a shaliach, give this get to his wife, right? Or shtar shichru zelivdi, right? This shtar shichru to his servant. If you wanted to retract, he could retract. Whenever he wants, he could retract. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Chachamim say, no. Big Gittin, right? In Gittin he could retract. But not in Shechur Avadim. Because they're going to be Zachil Adam Shelo Befanav and Chavin Lo Ela Befanav. But they're not going to be Chavin Lo Ela Befanav, which means like this. Shichrur, to liberate, right, a slave, is always a zechut. It doesn't exist that it's not a zechut. So because of that, the shliach himself, it's a zechut. It's something good. Something good for him. So therefore, the shliach himself, even without him knowing about it, the second he gets the document, he's mizaked for him. And then the guy's already freed. He just has to give him the paper as a proof. But girushin is a chova for a woman. Right? Why? Because it's always good. Right? You're right. Maybe some women are going to tell you, no, it's the best thing that they want to do. But usually it's a chova. Because at the end of the day, they were supported, they were there, that, and now she's left on the street stranded. So he says, because if a person wanted to not give food to a slave, he's allowed to. So for a slave, never loses out by becoming free. Because even when he was working for the master could have just said, I'm not going to give you to eat. Yeah, it's not proper to do, but he could do it. But a person can never tell his wife, so because of that, as long as he's married to her, he's always obligated to give her parnasah. So therefore, it is considered a chovah for her. So Amar Lahem, he comes and he says, what are you talking about? Says, 1 second. But just like he's going to be posel his eved, just like he's posel ishto, which means that this, according to Rabbi Meir, he says the shtar shichrur, the second that he gives the shtar shichrur, the eved is not allowed to eat truma anymore. Remember that an eved is allowed to eat truma. Because since he's your slave, he's allowed to eat truma. That means obviously he's not a kohen, but the fact that he's your slave, he's allowed to eat truma if you're a kohen. Just like he's going to be posel to your wife from eating truma. So he says, so if so, right, why is it that the shichrur is not considered a chovah? It is a chovah. Before he was able to eat truma, now he's not able to eat truma. Amrulo, they told him only because shiu kinyano, which means it's only because, right, he's the kinyan. What does it mean he's the kinyan? That means basically, that means the second that he's frees him, he's not part of the kinyan. When he's not part of the kinyan anymore, so now he's not allowed to eat the truma anymore, right? But it's only because he's the kinyan, not because of any other thing. He's not obligated to give him to eat truma. It's just because he's his property, so his property is allowed to eat truma, but not because of anything else. Okay, says the Gemara. Yativ Ravuna Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef Kamed Rabbi Yirmiyah. So we're sitting Ravuna Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Yativ Rabbi Yirmiyah, they come in, so Rabbi Yirmiyah was dozing off. Right, I see that all the time, right? But okay. So he says here, right? V'yativ Ravuna v'kama. So Ravuna was coming. We have that a few times over here, yeah. So he says, so Ravuna comes and he says, Shema mina midrabbanan. We learn right from here from the rabbis of our Mishnah. Hatofes bal chov kana. Imagine right now an Adam Zar comes and he grabs money or metaltalim for a bal chov, right? So he's going to acquire them. He's going to be zocheh for a person that has a debt to him, right? And therefore he's going to acquire them, right? In this fashion. So basically like this, just like you just said right now that a shliach is going to be zocheh for the shichrur of the eved, right? Even though the adom did not want to give it, right? Al datken, meaning like this. When you have the master that he gave the document to this guy, to be shliach, what was the mindset of the master? That he should give it to what? To the slave. When is the slave supposed to be freed? When it gets to his hand. Meaning, I'm the master. I come and I give the shaliach and I tell you, give it to the slave. When I gave it to him, what was my mindset? That the slave is only going to become free when? When he receives it. What did we say in the halakha in the Mishnah? No. The second that he got it, he's able to acquire it for the slave. And that's why I can't retract anymore. So means even though that wasn't my mindset, he's allowed to acquire it immediately. Okay? That's what we just said in our Mishnah. So according to that, Hatofes lebal chov, imagine right now you come and you take money or metaltalim, right, of the borrower for the lender, you're going to be zocher for the lender. Right? Which means like this. Let's say John Doe, right, owes David money. Yeah? That means David is the lender. Okay? And all of a sudden I come to John Doe, right, and he gives me money to buy something. Instead of doing the shlichut, I take the money and I said, thank you, I'm giving this to David. I have just acquired it for David.
You just acquired what?
I have just acquired this money back for David. That's what it is. Hatofes lebal chov. I took something, right, for a bal chov. Kana, he's going to acquire it. Right? Why? Because that's what I just did. That's what we just learned from the Mishnah. So says the Gemara, Elmaleh Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef, says Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef, Va'afilu bimkom shechav la'acherim. Even this is going to help if it's going to cause loss to other people, right? Which means at the end of the day, right, in our Mishnah, it was only because, right, there's no loss to it. But even in a case where it's going to cause a loss to somebody else, Elmaleh says, yes, it's going to help even if it's going to cost, which means like this. Let's say, for example, the guy, John Doe, gave me the money to pay back, not David, to pay back Yitzchak. Yeah, Isaac. And instead of paying back Isaac, I came and I went and I took it for David. Now it's chav la'acherim. It's going to be negative for Isaac now. Because Isaac is going to come, he's going to say, hey, one second, where are you going? Right? He owed me money as well. What do you? It's chav la'acherim. It's going to be negative for other people. Says the Gemara, yes, it still helps. So adehachi itarbu Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah all of a sudden woke up from his doze. We have that also a few times, right? All of a sudden they just wake up, right? And then what happens? Amaleu, he told them, dardeke, right? Mistaken ones, children. Yeah? He says, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan says. התופס לבעל חוב במקום שחב לאחרים לא קנה. If you're going to be תופס לבעל חוב במקום שחב לאחרים, doesn't help. Right? ואם תאמר משנתנו, our Mishnah, says no, כל האומר תנו, כאומר זכו דמי. If I come and I tell somebody, give this document to somebody else, it means that even though I told them give it to them, it means acquire it for them, zechu. So since he comes and he says, give this to him, it's ki'ilu, right, that you are actually acquiring it for them. Okay, so Amar Rav Chasta, says Rav Chasta, hatofes lebal chov yimkom shechav rechim vanu l'machlok, so machloket, Eliezer Rabbanan. So that means, the Rabbi Yirmiyah woke up and he says, you guys are children, you guys are making a mistake, right? It's actually machloket. A machloket is between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbanan. The times we learned to the Mishnah, Misheliket et ha'peah ve'amar, harezulu ploni ani. Imagine right now somebody grabs peah and he says, this is for Mr. So-and-so, the ani. Rabbi Eliezer says, yeah, zachalo. It's going to be zacha for that person. The Chachamim say, yitenenu le'ani aninsa rishon. You're going to give it to ani, the first ani that you could find. Which means that the machloka between them was, Rabbi Eliezer holds that if somebody could actually be mizaket to the ani, even though he's making other aniim lose. And Rabbanan hold, no, you can't do that. Meaning like this, right now you have a whole bunch of poor people, right? I was the first one in the field. I grabbed it and I said it's for Mr. Poor number A. But when I just grabbed it, I'm not an ani. So I just grabbed it and I said it's for Mr. Poor number A. I was just chav lacharine, Mr. Poor B, C, D, E, all the other poor people. I would just went against them. Because now by doing that, right, I just made them lose, right? They just lost out. So he comes and he says, you see from here, right, what happens is that if you're going to do this, right, this is a machloke between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbanan. Rabbi Eliezer says it does help. Even minkom shechav lachalinim. The Chachamim say it does not help. So Amar comes and he says, V'itei of Papa, some people say Rav Papa, Dilma lohi. Really, Be'emet, it's not true. You'd better mudalef. Akal no kama Rabbi Eliezer hatam. When does Rabbi Eliezer say over there? Ela demigu dibai mafke lelu l'nichsei v'havi ani v'chazile. He could have made his entire field hefker. And if he makes his entire field hefker, he's an ani. And then he could take it for himself. Umigu de zachil l'mshe, since he could take it for himself, zachil lechavre, he could take it for his friend as well. Aval hacha, but in our case, right, to do with the balchov, he can't do that. Meaning like this, right? What is the case by us? The case by us is, the guy comes, he gives me money. Instead of doing what I was supposed to do with the money, I came and I gave it to David because he owed money to David. Ask the Gemara, even if it's going to be chav lachrim, even if he also owed money to Isaac and to other people, they wanted to say yes. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, what are you talking about? You guys are half asleep. You're dozing off. Right? You're not paying attention. Yeah? So he says, right, why? He comes and he says, it's not true. We have a Mishnah to do with peah. He says, a Mishnah of the peah, there's a way that he could have taken for himself. How does he take it for himself? Peah is given to the aniim. He's got a field. How does he take it for himself? You know he takes it for himself. He makes everything of ker. And now he's an ani. When he's an ani, he's going to take it for himself. Just like migu. Migu means, just like he could take it for himself, now if he's going to take it, he can take it for his friend. It's going to be chav la'acharim, doesn't matter. But he could take it for his friend because he could take it for himself. It's a migu like this. In our case, the John Doe comes and he gives me money. I have no way of taking it for myself. So if I have no way of taking it for myself, even according to Rabbi Eliezer, it doesn't help me now giving it to David because Isaac is going to lose out. And the fact that it's chav la'acharim, according to everybody, it doesn't help. And that's how the Gemara, right, is going to finish. We'll continue on Sunday.